Hey everyone, Dr. Frunky here with an awesome new knife consult for you on a knife that I've been looking forward to handling for quite some time. This is the Custom Knife Factory Terra. This knife is designed by Malaysian knife designer Snecx Tan. Snecx is famous for some of the most unique designs in the knife industry. If you go back to last year, his custom Buster knife was one of the most memorable knives that I've ever gotten to handle, and I called it my custom knife of 2018. It was really something special. The Buster, however, was Snex's second custom knife effort. The first knife was a knife called the IFS 20. It was a knife that was designed, in essence, to be field strippable, to be disassemblable without any tools. That knife, he only made maybe, I want to say 2 or 4 of them, really not very many. The Buster had maybe 17 or 18 iterations, so to get a knife directly from Snecx Tan is almost impossible. Add to that the knives now go for multiple thousands of dollars when they're sold on the secondary. So it was very exciting to see the excellent Custom Knife Factory coming out with a production Snecx knife. This one is a modification of the idea on the IFS 20 to have a knife that can be totally disassembled without any external tools. And so we're going to get into that as we talk about the knife. I will do that during the video here, and it is an important thing to talk about. But let's go ahead and get some vital signs on this knife. Up front, you are looking at about 3.6 inches of blade, maybe a hair over 3.5 inches, 8 inches of overall length. You've got a handle length right at 4.4 inches with the same amount of grip area right there. The handle, if I can get this teared right here, is coming in with a thickness of 0.51, and the blade stock is 150 thousandths on the dot. So a nice carryable size. Despite being a rather complex and complicated looking piece, the weight is actually kept to a minimum at 3.9 ounces. So 3.6 inches of blade to 3.9 ounces of weight, that's approaching an excellent EDCable weight. And now it's add to that the really interesting complexities of this knife, and you have really quite an engineering and construction achievement right here. I'm going to bring out another couple of knives. This is the Spyderco Paramilitary 2 and the Para 3. Here you can see that the Terra slots right in between these two knives. They are both very easy to carry, but this you're going to see you get a lot more blade than the PM2 with a handle about the same size as a Para 3 and slimmer and shorter than both. And so quite a nice size for actual carry and use on this knife. Let's go ahead and break this knife down anatomically. As you've seen up front is this blade done in M390 steel in sort of a modified Wharncliffe look. It's got sort of a belly to it and a bit of a reverse tanto almost look to the tip right there. Quite nice user style blade right there. Opening is through this opening hole back here. Obviously it Spidey flicks quite well. It can also be opened with the thumb rather easily. The fact that this is a liner lock allows the access to that hole to be very easy. As you've noticed that this tab does rise up above the handle, and it is a front flippable knife. It's not the easiest thing in the world to front flip. It does not have the same kind of an action as, say, a chamois does. However, it is reproducible and it is fun to do, and so that adds to the fun factor of this knife tremendously. Moving back to the pivot, interestingly, this is running on phosphor bronze washers. We'll see that when we disassemble the knife. So that also is even more impressive that they were able to make a knife that requires high precision. I'll say that phosphor bronze washer knives typically require tighter tolerances and higher precision in order to come back together right and to be tuned right than ball bearing knives. And the fact that this one has washers and is disassemblable as it is just truly impressive. I also know that that stays in closer line to what Snecx likes with his own knives, because his own knives run on washers. Typically the customs that he has done so far run on washers because he likes the clean precision of making a washer knife. Moving back to the handle, you're going to notice that the pivot has a very interesting hardware on here. That is because it is built for the slot on the clip to be the screwdriver for the knife. We're going to show you that in just a second. You're going to see some random holes in the knife here. Like, what is this? Is it a switch? No, it isn't. We'll show you what it is. And then some pins back here in the construction. It's got a full-length back spacer going on right here that actually has some grooves and some holes in it, very reminiscent of Snex's real designs. Really, I think that Custom Knife Factory nailed the aesthetic, nailed the mechanics, and nailed the engineering on this knife. It's truly impressive. And then you're going to see these Damascus or titanium Damascus inlays. These are very likely the Russian Zlatinox Damascus kind of stuff right here. Very cool. So let's get to the real interesting part of this knife, the most interesting thing, the thing that makes this knife actually interesting, and that is that it can be disassembled without any tools. Now, to navigate the construction of the IFS 20, Snecx actually had to navigate around knife maker Ken Onion. Ken Onion owns the rights to the CRKT field strip technology. He developed that, and the wording of that patent is rather broad, and so almost any knife that is disassemblable without tools, it's very difficult to navigate how to create one without infringing on those patent laws. Apparently they have done that with this. And so let's get into how it is done on this knife. So first things first, you're going to look at the back spacer. There is a little bit of a groove. I've noticed that if you take your dominant hand, I take the right hand, and you put your thumb into that groove, it's going to loosen the pin that's holding the back of the knife together. It just actually falls right out if you push on it. This is something that has taken me quite a while. I actually tried to record this video, and I couldn't get this pin out because I didn't figure out the technique. It's actually quite easy. If you just put your thumb right there and give it a solid push, that pin actually just falls totally out of the knife. And so that is how you're going to start this. That allows you to pull the clip off of the knife. You're going to notice that it has the same slot as what you can see here on the pivot. So we're going to go ahead and just go straight to town on that. We're going to put this in. It is a perfect fit, and it allows you to just come around here. I'm going to be careful with those Damascus inlays because this is not my knife. But you can get a nice turn on there. And after a certain point, you can just kind of use your hands. I'm going to keep using this thing here. And eventually this is going to come apart. There we go. Now we can use our hands. Off comes a pivot screw. This is really cool to me because, you know, theoretically, if you're using your knives out in the field and you need to clean them, you need to get rid of something, you can do that with this. Here, out comes the knife. Oh, this is actually, I'm sorry, this is running on bearings. Man, oh man, I thought this was running on Foster bronze washers. I'm a fool. So that is running on bearings. We're going to go ahead and keep going here. Now the back spacer pops out. That pin pops out. And the knife sort of just kind of falls apart. And as you take it apart, you're going to notice on the inside what those holes in the scales were for. It's because these pieces are actually press fit into the frames. Here's the back spacer coming out. Here's the whole knife coming apart. All these pieces, there's a pin right here, and then this comes out. So you're going to see actually that there are two lock bars on this knife with two separate detents. And that's kind of an interesting thing. And so now that we've seen all of the insides, now that we've proven that I'm an idiot and this is running on ball bearings and not on phosphor bronze washers, we're going to go ahead and put this knife back together. It's actually relatively simple. All the pieces are just kind of made to only go in one way. So we're going to get all those pieces together. You can see how each one fits. This one goes in right here. We're going to put our lock bars back in place on both sides. This one goes here. They had a stop pin in between them, like this. Okay, I'm going to put one set of bearings right there. We're going to bring this right like that. Put the other bearings and the blade back on like this. So now what you're going to see is the way that this knife kind of works with these double detents. Okay, so this is the actual lock bar that engages on the knife. And then as the knife closes, there seems to be a closure detent as well. So very, very curious on how this thing is constructed. Put this in right there. I'm going to keep taking a look at all these pieces. So next we're going to have our stop pin go on with our back spacer. Let's go ahead and put that all together. Kind of like that. Kind of like this. Very interesting construction on this knife. This pin fits underneath, so you have to put this back on like that. Very, very interesting construction on this knife. Very, very interesting. Very unique. This is all gonna eventually come back together the right way. And it's relatively straightforward. I know I'm trying to make this look complicated, but it is most certainly not. There we go. Just like that. Little squeezes and pinches here and there. Okay, so we're going to bring this here. We're going to put our pin back on here. This is going to provide a tension point for the back spacer. Right like that. Creates that pivot point. Alrighty. Next we're going to put our pivot back together. Starting it here. We're gonna leave the knife open. Okay. Sorry I get quiet when I'm trying to do this. Sometimes I'm trying to focus. So then we're going to bring this all back together. Try not to cut my finger off as I do this. Just putting this screw back on. Trying not to cut myself. And you do have to tighten this down a good ways. Okay, so that's actually pretty tight right there. That's feeling good. Good. Now that's popping back into place, so you feel that tension was restored. Now I can go ahead and test my centering and everything. So that feels pretty good. The centering maybe needs a little bit of work, so I'm going to give it a little bit more torque right there. That's pretty tight. It reaches a natural position, and there you go. The knife is back dead centered. That's pretty good. And here we go. We're going to put this thing back together. You just slide the pin back in, push down on it again like you did at the beginning, and the knife is fully reassembled and completely as it was prior to the disassembly. And so what you can see now is how the knife opens and closes. That secondary lock bar is actually closing, keeping the knife in place in the closed position. So there is this detent. Watch as the knife closes. Only the lock bar on this side actually closes down and holds the blade in place. This one stays in position, and the lock bar functions as a normal lock bar. So quite a curious design choice on that one. I may need Snecx to explain that one to me a little bit. But just like that, the knife is disassembled and reassembled. I know I kind of make it look silly, and I may not be the smoothest at doing it, but with a little bit of practice, it is that easy, and it is just very clever, and it's a lot of fun. And sorry about the confusion about the washers versus the bearings. This is very smooth, so I'm not surprised that now it's on bearings, but I was impressed thinking that it was on washers. So super cool knife from CKF. The engineering feats that were achieved here are really, really world-class. And this knife was coming in somewhere in the like $600 to $1,000 price range, which is certainly less than the customs are, which are multiple thousands of dollars. So I'm really impressed with this. I'm blown away. This is a landmark kind of a knife that certainly deserves your attention. It may not be the most fun, but it is certainly very interesting. It's just really an incredible knife. I'm blown away by the quality and the way that this was executed. It really makes the Hoback Buster, the interpretation by Hoback of Snecx work, just look laughable. For almost the same price, this knife is an engineering masterpiece, and that knife was essentially a glorified ZT. And so really amazing work by Custom Knife Factory, amazing work by Snecx Tan. Really looking forward to see what Snecx has for us next. He's literally trying to reinvent the lock with something called the Super Lock, and he also has a mini buster coming out sometime by the end of the calendar year, I hope. So thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you think of the CKF Terra down below in the comments. Go ahead and click like and subscribe to my YouTube channel here. Follow me on Instagram as Dr. Frunky. Head over and follow at Snecx. He goes by at Snecx on Instagram, and see what his work is all about. And so thank you for watching. As always, take care.